Hi, let's look at PancakeSwap, ticker symbol CAKE, C-A-K-E. Currently at $24.36. The market rank is 28, so we've got a market cap of $5.5 billion. And the reason why we look at the PancakeSwap token is because of this very pretty trend channel over here. This is like the prettiest trend I've ever seen on any chart ever. But we will not only look at the US dollar chart here on this channel, we will compare PancakeSwap. We will compare Cake to Uniswap, or to be more specific, the Uni token. And the reason why we compare them is basically because they are in the same business, more or less, right? Uniswap is a decentralized exchange built on Ethereum. PancakeSwap is the competitor built on the Binance Smart Chain with lower transaction fees, but also a lower market cap, right? So Uniswap has a market cap of approximately 16 billion and is thus almost 3 times larger than PancakeSwap. So we will look at PancakeSwap's US dollar chart. We will also look at PancakeSwap measured in Bitcoin. That's this chart over here. We will look at PancakeSwap in Ethereum, so the Pancake price divided by the Ethereum price. And then since we do the comparison with Uniswap, that's the US dollar chart of Uniswap, we will divide the PancakeSwap price by the Uniswap price. So Cake divided by Uni. How is Cake relatively to Uni outperforming or underperforming? That's this chart over here. So this recent rally here is interesting, right? Let's zoom in a little bit. This is now the US dollar chart of Pancake. It's a very pretty trend. I mean, look at this. So many confirmations in this trend channel. And we're pretty low within that trend channel as well, right? One way to time this as well, if you don't want to draw these lines, is to use the relative strength index on this hourly chart. And then you can set a certain threshold. So say historically speaking, the price was usually bouncing back up at around the 40 or 39 mark. So you could use this as an indicator. You could also do this for the upper band, and then you just trade according to the RSI. So the RSI more or less reflects now the movements within that trend channel. You can simply buy whenever we are low here. You can also set an alert. So when you're on TradingView, click here on alert, set the condition as the RSI being below a certain value. Then you can send yourself an email or you can trigger an API call. And so you get automatically notified whenever we are low on the Pancake price. Now, usually I don't like to look at the US dollar charts that much. And that's because you've got a lot of general crypto sentiment within this chart. So when you look at the trend here, it started taking off since the 20th of July. And we can basically see this in any crypto chart. The prices, they are going up since the 20th of July. Here, look at Bitcoin. Since the 20th of July, we are going up. This is Ethereum. Same story. So the trends, they don't look as pretty as with Pancake, right? But we have these general influences on the crypto market. When the market is expanding, prices go up across the board. So the US dollar returns, they are highly correlated. And so instead of looking at the US dollar chart, you should at least look at the Bitcoin chart. And if we now look at this rally since the 20th of July, it doesn't look as pretty anymore. Of course, we did outperform 40% versus Bitcoin since this rally, but it's not as consistent, right? At the beginning of the rally, we actually underperformed versus Bitcoin. And if you look at the same chart in Ethereum, this is even more pronounced. Even hard to find here the 20th of July. There we go. We moved in tandem with Ethereum at the very beginning, then even underperformed, and only recently we got the outperformance since like the 8th of August. The outperformance since that recent rally to Ethereum, by the way, is 25%. So the 8th of August, let's look again at the US dollar chart. That's since this point over here. So Ethereum slowed down, PancakeSwap continued to rally. Now here's Uniswap again. This is the 20th of July. We got our rally. And in Uniswap, we are now pretty much in a sidewards movement, right? The same goes for Ethereum, by the way. And Bitcoin seems to still slowly creep up. So PancakeSwap is smaller than Uniswap, right? The market cap is around a third of Uniswap. And so we expect, since the market cap is smaller, that the risk is higher, and with higher risk should come more return, right? If you've got a very large cap asset, such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, you're okay to get less return because there is security in market cap, right? There's security in size. Bitcoin is not going to zero in the next week or two. But if you go really small on your altcoins, then that chance is way higher, right? And so the tendency is the smaller the altcoin, the higher the risk, and thus the more return you should expect. And so now, since PancakeSwap is smaller than Uniswap in terms of market cap, we should see an outperformance here. Let's look again at the 20th of July. We do see the outperformance, not very consistently, but still 26%. That's not bad at all. When we zoom out a little bit though, this outperformance is not that obvious anymore, right? We almost seem to be in some kind of trading range historically, and you could argue that we are high in this trading range. The range isn't even too wide, it's less than 100%. Usually those kind of relative trading ranges, they are larger. So it's not really obvious what's going to outperform over the long term. We did get the outperformance during the rally. So the way I see this is that it's not clear at all that this will continue and that Cake will outperform. This is where technical analysis reaches its limits. It does make sense to also look at the fundamentals here. Obviously, they are both decentralized exchanges, but they're pretty different in nature, right? You could argue that Uniswap is more decentralized, that PancakeSwap does have a lot of dependency on Binance. It relies on the Binance Smart Chain, but there's also fundings and direct interoperability between Binance systems and Pancake systems. So it does make sense to look here at the fundamentals. It's not obvious which of those coins is going to win in the long term. If you ask me for my personal opinion, I would probably still rather go with Uniswap because it's larger, it seems to have less risk. And if Ethereum is really successful at getting the proof of stake launched and at permanently reducing gas fees, then the main competitive advantage of PancakeSwap is probably gone because people move to PancakeSwap because of the lower transaction fees. So obviously I can't read the future either, but if I were to only invest into one of them, I personally do prefer Uniswap. Now, does it make sense to hold Uniswap versus Ethereum? It's hard to say, right? The outperformance is not yet clear. Uniswap is way smaller than Ethereum. But what we can see is that since the beginning of the year, we saw a slight outperformance, right? Like 18%. Since the beginning of the year is where Bitcoin dominance fell, where the altcoin rally started. Uniswap profited from this, but unfortunately not consistently at all. And that's probably because Ethereum went up in price, and so trading reduced on Uniswap. Uniswap's attractiveness went down, but this might very much turn around if proof of stake will be a success. I personally think if the gas fees will really go down, a lot of even those third-party centralized exchanges, they will struggle. Because that's in the end why a lot of people now still use Binance or KuCoin, right? It's the low transaction fees, you can actively trade, but you still have the middleman there, right? You don't know, will they really pay me out? You've got a lot of KYC happening on third-party exchanges. You also don't know how financially stable those companies are, right? Or if banks, they will completely stop transfers from and to those exchanges. So there's kind of like a single point of failure here. Once you have centralized exchanges and once you deploy a lot of money, like significant assets, then having this intransparent third party in the middle is a problem. And so Uniswap does shine in that regard, but the costs are still too high. So buying this in the end is obviously also a speculation on proof of stake being implemented properly and getting more adoption for Uniswap in the future. If you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos every day. And since the videos are time sensitive and you want to watch them while they are fresh, feel free to hit notifications as well. Thanks for liking the video. And last but not least, if you haven't yet, feel free to join our Telegram channel. It's completely spam free. We are around 400 people over there. You can click either the link in the video description or you can find us by simply searching Bitcoin Strategy Channel within the Telegram app. Would be great to see you there. See you next time. Bye bye.